Welcome back. Webinars are a key tactic, I think, for getting people into your sales funnel. And today I am absolutely delighted to introduce you to Paul Jordan from Vivity Internet Marketing. And he is a specialist at making webinars work for you and also some of the components of how to do it. Paul, welcome to our channel this morning. How are you?
Chris, hello. Thank you for inviting me here. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. It's Monday, the week ahead, ready to go.
And I guess you're very familiar with talking to camera and making things happen as a result of this digital presence that we sometimes find ourselves in.
Yeah, very much so, very much so. I think like a lot of us a couple of years ago or so when I first got started, camera shyness and nervousness and all that kind of stuff until I realised that, I'm staring at this little bit of plastic on top of my computer and how irrational it is to be scared of that. But, you live and learn.
All right, we'll delve into that a little bit more. In terms of how, you've obviously internet marketing, it's quite a broad church in terms of things that could happen from there.
Sure.
But why webinars in particular? What's your background on that, Paul?
Well, I suppose, let me rewind a little bit. Probably about a year and a half ago, I was approached by about 7 people within a short space of time. There was like a relationship counsellor, a business coach, a weight loss coach, a lifestyle coach, people of that nature. I think there's a therapist in there somewhere as well. And all these people wanted to run webinars. They said, "Hey Paul, can you help me set up a webinar?" I said, "Well, I'd be delighted." So having done so, I realised that there's a lot of people out there who realise the power of webinars, want to run them, but sit down and start to configure them and think, "Oh my goodness, where do I start? I've got to build my ads, I've got to build a video, there's a lot of things." So I recognised that there's a demand for people to set up webinars, and I kind of set up a program from there. That was me thinking the universe was sending me an idea for business.
Well, I definitely use webinars myself in terms of learning, and I like both the live ones but also the recorded ones that I can go back and play. I presume you deal with both recorded and live webinars for people.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think we're both aware that you can have, as you say, a live webinar when the person's actually there in front of the camera when you're watching, pre-recorded ones. But of course with a webinar, even with a live one, they can be recorded so that if people get stuck in traffic and they can't get to the computer in time, they can watch the replay. So yes, all of the above.
Okay. And just before we dig into who's it for, could you help us understand the difference between perhaps a workshop Zoom whereby we've got people coming in on a Zoom link and they're sort of networking, as opposed to a webinar? What's the difference there, Paul?
Yeah, well, I think traditionally Zoom is seen as a meeting tool. So if you make the analogy in the real world, you'd have people in a room around a table talking to each other, exchanging notes, maybe someone with a whiteboard, but they're all collaborating. So I think Zoom is what that's really intended for. Now, Zoom do have a separate webinar product, but I'm not going to go into that now. Whereas a webinar is more the kind of scenario where you have someone standing on stage presenting to an audience. So there's still a little bit of interaction there, but much less than there would be in people sitting around a conference table, brainstorming an idea. So that's kind of how I see them. Zoom is more of a meeting tool. And in Zoom, people can be on the video at the same time. With a webinar, people don't necessarily want to be on camera. They may be sitting there in their pajamas watching you present. So that's the kind of the key difference as I would describe it.
Got it. So it's kind of having a meeting, but you might not necessarily have to be in the room and able to get all the benefit of the speaker.
Sure.
Very good. And if I'm sitting in front of people and they're thinking about, well, yeah, I think I'm going to go and do a webinar, who do you recommend should use webinars as a tactic?
I think very much people service oriented businesses such as coaching, therapists, counsellors, where the type of business is very much the person delivering the service as opposed to products. I mean, products can be sold as well, things like solar systems, but higher ticket products, not things like telephone cables and that kind of thing. But I very much find that people like therapists, counsellors, coaches, where the person who's delivering the webinar is the person who's actually going to deliver the service, maybe the hypnotherapy, maybe the business coaching, the life coaching. Those kinds of people work really well.
And is there a reason why there? Are they producing some little chinks of value or trust as a teaser to then bring more people into the world? What's the reason why you think that type of service-based professional is more suited?
I think it's, well, if we look at how some of these people get their business, if we look at someone like a therapist, they traditionally may take a phone call with someone and have a first free initial consultation, but perhaps they may never see that person again. So they may spend an hour or so trying to effectively win some business. And just as a quick aside, I find that a lot of therapists find the whole idea of money and business kind of a little bit alien, because they kind of like to help people, as coaches do as well. But getting in front of one person at a time who doesn't necessarily come back is very inefficient. Whereas with a webinar, you can get in front of a much bigger audience. And part of the nature of the service is that not only are you trying to sell your methodology or the benefit that you can offer somebody, but it's very much a personal thing. You know, there's a lot of rapport. It's a very intimate thing, giving therapy and coaching, and it may boil down to something as simple as like, do they like you? And if people can see you perform on video and you can interact with them and ask questions, they can sort of build up the know, like and trust and form an opinion of you. And they might think, do you know what, this person's not for me, and walk away, click, gone. But hopefully that person will warm to you during the video, during the webinar, and get to know, like and trust you, and bring the business to you.
Yeah, all completely understood. And while I've been on your website, I saw something called the Winning with Webinars program. Can you tell me more about that and why you created it?
Yeah, so I think recognizing that there is a lot of things to set up for a webinar, I thought I'd design a program that shows people how to do all the steps necessary to actually create their own webinars. So it's things like, you know, choosing the webinar platform, creating the webinar, building the slides, some speaking skills, which is something obviously you're very good at, how to structure the presentation, setting up a landing page where people can submit their address, their email address and their name, and also an offer page. So obviously at the end of the webinar, people want to be able to possibly make a purchase. So it's setting up all of that so you have a complete funnel. So the whole program teaches people how to do that for themselves, but there are also done for you options in there, because people might think, well, I'm quite capable of creating my own slides, thank you very much. I'm quite good at speaking already, but I don't know how to set up a landing page. So although the program teaches everything from start to finish, from the ads to the offer, if they can't do the bits in between, then we can help them create those as well.
Because it's quite, well, all those steps you talk about there, I'm feeling quite overawed already, and it's quite intimidating, isn't it? They have this intention to, yeah, I'm going to go and create a webinar, and then they almost fall down on the first hurdle of, well, should I use a webcam or should I use a microphone? And there's lots of experts out there telling you that you should do this, this and this, and actually we almost get stifled with our progress because we have to find perfection. But you're giving everybody that system through one Winning with Webinars program.
Very much so, very much so. And like all of us these days, you know, tapping into making use of some good AI tools like ChatGPT. Because let's face it, I mean, a lot of owner-operators, they may deliver the service, like they may be very good at delivering the coaching or the therapy or whatever it is that they do. But if they're owner-operators, they either outsource all their marketing or they do it themselves. And of course, you know, outsourcing is very great if you have the budget for it. But a lot of people that are starting out don't. And like a lot of things in life, you can either do whatever it is yourself, or you can pay someone. You can cook your own food, you can go to a restaurant, you can paint your own house, you can pay a decorator, all of those things. So when people are first starting out, it can be cost effective to do a lot of the things for themselves if they're able to do so, and outsource the things that just aren't worth their time, or the things that they just don't have the ability to do.
But it's that time that they save, isn't it? They may think that they can put it all together themselves, but actually the time that they'll save by leveraging somebody else's knowledge or somebody else's experience or even somebody else's failures, it's going to catapult them further forward than just literally trying to make it up and do it all by themselves. So you're kind of a guide to success, I suppose, aren't you, in terms of helping people get from pain to triumph.
I think that's a good way of putting it. But I also think very generally, like so many things in life, we often have the intention to do something for ourselves, like a tax return, as a good example. People think, oh, I'll do my tax return, but then they sit down and try and do it, and then half a day later they realise what a pain in the neck it is and how horrible it is to have to do that. And they think, do you know what? I'll give it to the tax, I'll give it to my accountant, and they might pay a couple of £100 or whatever it is. They've already wasted half a day, but they know next year they've saved half a day because they just give it to their accountant. And it can be a bit like that with building a webinar. People go through the pain of thinking, my goodness, I've got to build all these separate components. Do you know what? I don't want to do it. Here's some money, do it for me. And I found with some of the clients I've worked with, that can be the case with most people. I've had a few people that have been very, very good at taking on board all the tech and doing it themselves. I had one lady in Germany who set up her own webinars beautifully. She was very, very, just very tech astute, I suppose. But I think a lot of us have to go through the pain of realising what's involved in something to realise that we don't want to do it.
Well, 100%, and that analogy of the tax return, because you could do it by yourself, but also you might miss the box, or you might put the claim through fraudulently, or you just miss an opportunity to claim something that you should have done, and it's kind of leaving gold on the table, really, isn't it, for what could be done by an expert.
Absolutely.
Could you give me some examples of a few people or one person you helped with who was in that complete overload, and I have no idea where to start, Paul, but I've got all these great ideas? So they came to you with nothing, but they left you with a vehicle that was now producing evergreen systems to create revenue for them.
Well, I think there's a couple in particular that spring out, because when you look at my testimonials, you'll see a common theme that people sit down at the keyboard with great enthusiasm. I'm going to run a webinar. They're amazing things. I see them working for other people. I want to do them. And then overwhelm sets in and think, oh, how do I do the webinar? What about my slides? And what about the offer page? And in the testimonials, you can hear a couple of people saying, I promised myself at the beginning of the year I was going to do a webinar, and here I am 9 months later, I'm stuck. And that's a common theme. So people that have spent, I think the German lady, I think she spent like 2 years wanting to create a webinar. 2 years, and of course we all know how quickly time can go by. But when I helped her, she was up and running within a couple of weeks. And there's another lady, a weight loss coach, and again she said, I promised myself that I'd be running a webinar. Here I am 9 months later, still haven't done it. Started working with Paul, and within a couple of weeks we're up and running. So it's a common theme for sure.
It's appealing to there's 7 P's of sort of overwhelm that people tend to get stuck in, and I can hear a lot of those P's coming out there of perfection or procrastination or people pleasing other people as opposed to looking for yourself. Anyway, that's another topic. What about how you would say advice? Let's just say people are listening and thinking, yes, all right, Paul, I'm all in. Webinars are a tactic that I think are going to work for me. What would be your advice on where to start?
I think firstly, you've got to have some good content. So putting together a good slide deck, but not having slides that are full of bullet points. Slides that have got some good images and photos that resonate with the audience and that use pictorials to kind of convey the message that you're also talking verbally. And also, I dare say this probably overlaps with some of your own advice as well, Chris, because people are quite often afraid of their own voice. They're not used to sort of reading out loud or speaking out loud. And even when they're on their own, with nobody else there, speaking out loud can feel quite alien to them. So I'd encourage people to stand up, get a book, and just read for 15 minutes a day in front of a mirror, possibly record themselves so they can look at their performance, but just start getting the whole idea of speaking. And I think standing up is really good for posture and power and energy, and starting to record themselves, because all the rest of it is just setting up the technology really, and some good copywriting for advertising. So that's a good place to start, but also having a really good offer, because it's all very well having a good talk, but you need to be able to sell something. We're all here to make money. So it's having a really good, compelling offer that the audience will be very wanting to buy at the end of the webinar. And if they don't want to buy it the same day, maybe buying it in a week's time or 2 weeks' time. Having a good, well thought out, attractive offer.
And do you recommend that people test that offer out on people before they go live with it? Because my own belief sometimes is that the offer might look great for us, but actually somebody else goes, and?
Yeah. Very, very true indeed. Very true indeed. And if there's the opportunity to do that with people that you already know or you have an audience, that's great to do, to get some feedback or hopefully to get some sales and then get some feedback on the sale itself. It's really good to ask existing customers what made you buy it, what was attractive, what did you like, what didn't you like, what did you think of the price, all of those factors, because that's all feedback that you can feed into your overall process. But when it comes to actually marketing, in marketing, there's something that you may be familiar with called split testing. And basically, you try things out because none of us know for sure what's going to work and what's not. We can use our own best intentions and our own best ideas, looking at some copywriting, looking at an offer and think, that's brilliant, I think that's really good. But it's not our job to do that, it's the audience. The audience will tell us if it's good or not. So the way we do that, a bit like fishing, you just throw it out there, split test several different offers, maybe different copywriting, different pricing, different features and different headlines, and you just try things out. You run traffic to it and find out which of those things performs the best. It's a very kind of ongoing iterative process. It's not a case of try it once and forget it. You have to constantly try new things and new ideas, and you find out through seeing the statistics as to what's performing well and what isn't, and then you just carry on in that vein.
I totally agree with that. And even if you do your first webinar and you only create, I don't know, let's just say you make £10 worth of sales, that does at least show you that you've managed to create £10 of revenue.
Yeah.
But from that, you can probably see what they liked and what they didn't, and then you can split test the next time and just keep on doing incremental. And if it goes from 10 to 50, 50 to 500, well, that's it. The snowball is gathering momentum as it goes down the hill.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And when you're doing your program, is it done for you in that they buy the program and then they're in their own lane to fix it? Or do you work with people in a consultative, I'm here if you help me kind of thing in the background?
Very much the latter. Very much sort of we'll work with them. So the program is still, I've launched it fairly recently. So I'm still refining it and I'm very keen to get feedback, but working very closely with people to go through the content, have Zoom calls with them to clarify things, to help things, to do a screen share, remote login, to fix things, all of that, to make sure that people have a really, really good experience. Because, like all of us, we really want our clients to succeed. We don't want to just take the money and run. For me, success is about seeing that client succeed with the knowledge that we've given them. And if they're not succeeding, then I'm going to be very disappointed. And also that means actually picking clients that we know are going to do the work, because training courses generally, there's a lot of statistics that people buy a course and then it just sits on the shelf gathering dust. And I personally don't want those people. I would sooner not take money from someone who's not going to do the work. And a lot of people kind of buy the course and think that's it. They're not prepared to put the work in. It's like having it's like buying a gym membership. You can pay for the membership, but if you don't go and put the work in, there's going to be no difference, is there? And it's very much the same with training courses. But at the moment, it's very much a case of working closely with people, overcoming their problems very quickly, making sure they get through the content, making sure they do the work, holding them accountable, and getting them out there and getting their first webinar up and running as soon as possible.
And if we were to think about the next 12 to 24 months and the future webinars, it does seem to be quite a sweet spot at the moment. How do you see that progressing or declining in terms of the opportunity right now? Is it fantastic, get in because it's only just started, or get in quick because it's about to dissipate?
Well, I think it's definitely on the upward trend and has been for quite a few years. I'm sure we all recognise that COVID was a huge contribution to that, because during COVID people were working online. I think the shares, the price of the shares in Zoom alone absolutely skyrocketed during COVID. So that was kind of a cloud with a silver line, because webinars really took off. And people have realised since then that remote working and so forth works really well, and that trend has continued. If you look at all the webinar products that are out there, there's more and more that are becoming available on the marketplace, which suggests that there's more and more demand for these products. And obviously investors and entrepreneurs see that there's an opportunity to sell webinar products out there, because we can reach people all over the world. I've got audiences from about 72 countries, which is amazing. You've got people from Australia, Africa, Nigeria, all over the world. And that's the real beauty about it, is that we can reach an audience literally anywhere in the world through a webinar. It's just fantastic. So as you can tell, I'm very passionate about them.
100%. And I'll ask you a final question in a minute in terms of, what else have I missed? But where would they go for the next step with you, Paul, in order to talk about the program or just talk about where they're at in terms of webinar education?
Sure. Well, they're very welcome to book a call with me. Hopefully there'll be a booking link that they can click to go through to my calendar in the description around the video here somewhere. Alternatively, if people want to email me, they can email me. The email address is there, paul@vivityinternetmarketing.co.uk, but hopefully that'll be in the description as well.
It will, absolutely, yeah.
No pressure whatsoever. I'm a nice guy, very approachable. I like helping people. and I'd be very happy to just have a no obligation call with somebody to explain what we can do for them, how it would work, and take it from there.
Very good. And is there anything that I've missed here that you think, oh, I'm going to click off the call in a minute, and I wish Chris had asked me about this particular topic around webinars?
Not really. I think we've covered everything very, very well. I think I would just close in saying that I would encourage anybody who's kind of sitting on the fence to take action, because if they don't, your competitors certainly are. And webinars, as I said, they're a great way to reach audiences across the world. And also, in terms of business development, I think once people have filled the calendar, they have to look at what's next, and I can help them with that as well, building a course. But that's another subject for another day.
Very good. Well, there you go, everyone who listened. Webinars, I believe they're a really good tactic for getting that first part of the funnel, attention, and then attracting people into your ecosystem. And if you want a specialist on how to do it, then the show description will tell you how to connect with Paul. Paul, thank you so much for your wisdom and your insights, and I urge people to get curious with webinars.
Chris, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be here. I've enjoyed the conversation, so thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Paul. Assume you've enjoyed this. Why don't you subscribe and like the channel, which means that more people can find out about more content just like this in terms of webinars.